Well, welcome to Mrs. Bill's Sweet Treats and More. This is my YouTube channel. Today is Monday and this is Monday Moments. Well, this morning I got up and I roasted some my red pepper and my garlic because I am making greens, and the greens are going to be meatless. I usually make my greens without meat. Sometimes I use chicken stock, sometimes I use vegetable stock. So if I use chicken stock, that's not really meatless because I'm using chicken stock, but I'm not adding any bacon. I'm not adding salt pork or smoked meat, which even smoked turkey, those are things I really enjoy, and ham hocks, oh my goodness. But this is going to be a recipe that I use with my family, and it's really kind of cool to me. I start with, I roast my red pepper because I love the flavor of red pepper in my greens. That's not something you need to do, and you don't need to roast your garlic. That's what I do because I smush it into well, I'll show you. So I began with my greens. I've already washed I'm using less of probably less than a pound of turnip and mustard greens, and I've already washed those. Generally, when you buy greens at the store, I know when I was growing up, they would be full of grit, dirt, and sometimes there would be bugs in them because they come out the ground. Over the years, I found different stores that carry greens, and sometimes they come pre-washed. But in the pre-washed process, I found that it is sometimes important for me to go ahead and wash them anyway. Not that there is something crawling in there, because I do remember those days, but sometimes the greens are not as clean as I want, and sometimes I just want to do that extra. So you can actually find greens at most grocery stores, and I have an interesting story. When we moved to a city in Indiana, I shopped at Jewel there. Now I'm from Chicago, so Jewel Osco was everywhere, and they carried. I could go to Jewel Osco or Dominic's. I could go to those stores, and they would always have greens and things in my neighborhood. So when I moved to Indiana, I lived in a small town, and I was in the grocery store and I was looking for greens, and all I saw was kale. And I asked the produce worker, and he said, he kept pointing me to the kale. Well, I said, that's kale. I want greens. He said, but that's green. I said, no, do you have collard, mustard, or turnip? And he, so I realized everybody doesn't know about greens. When I moved in the South, oh my goodness, everybody knew what a collard green was. That wasn't hard at all. So I'm going to take mine, because that's what I grew up with, was turnip, mustard, and collard greens, and the smell and the flavor is amazing. So I'm going to get my collards ready. I've already washed them several times to make sure there's no grit or anything coming out of it, and I'll be right back. I got my collard greens here and my mustard and turnips over here. I'm going to put these aside for just a moment and work on my collards. I buy my greens. These are huge. I get these from a store here called Lambert's. They have fresh fruits, vegetables, and they serve meals. They serve sandwiches. They have seafood. Oh my goodness! You can get turkey, and people eat goat or whatever, and you're able to just pick it all up there. And their vegetables and fruit are beautiful. They are amazing. So what I do with mine is I take my giant leaves. These are kind of wet, but and I want you to see this one. It's humongous. It's going to be some good greens. So I have my collard green all rolled up, and then I just cut them. And this takes a little bit of time, and I just cut it. And I tend to cook those first because they can be tough. They take a little longer to cook. The the mustard and turnips are thinner leaves, so they don't take as long. You know, they're not as tough. And turnip, here's a nice one. They don't tend to take as long. So I don't want those smushing while the collards are cooking. So I'm gonna cut these up and I'll be back with you. Well, we're back. And that sound is the sound of us beginning to get ready to put on our greens. I have cut up my pepper here, and I also have some onion, and I have my roasted garlic. The first thing I'm going to do is put in my onion, because that's going to take a little longer to cook. I put a little bit butter, a couple teaspoons of butter with a tablespoon or two of olive oil. So I'm putting in my onion, and I'm not going to put my pepper in. I'm going to do this first, and then I'm going to squeeze in some garlic and then my peppers, and then I'm going to take them back out. I want my onion to get translucent and tender. I don't like tough onion in my greens. Some people do. Have at it. Have at it. This smells really good. And it's sweating well. And I don't know if you can see, but we're going to be using our secret ingredient. This is what the onions look like. They're still a little, you know, need to cook. So I'm going to let that cook a little bit more. My onions are softer, so I'm going to put in my peppers, and they're already mushy. I just want them to melt together for just a moment, and then I'm going to remove them because I want to smush my garlic into the pan. It smells really good. This is going to go into half of this goes into my greens, and half of it waits until the end to go in. So this is my onion and red pepper, roasted red pepper. Right here. And then I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil and take it off the fire, off the stove. No fire there. And I'm going to take a few pieces of my roasted garlic. And as you can see, it's nice and brown and it's tender. So I'm going to take off a couple of these and just squeeze it. And as you can see, it's very soft. The top is brown. Ugh. And I just squeeze it into the pan. And because garlic burns very easily, I'm taking it off, and I'm going to smush it into the olive oil. I'm going to add a little butter. Olive oil tends to burn more easily than vegetable oil, but it has a background flavor that I like in the greens. So I'm smushing my garlic into my butter and my olive oil. You can certainly use fresh garlic and grate it, cut it up, and it will give really good effect. The roasted garlic adds just a different spin, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to put that aside, my garlic, and I'm going to put it up, and we'll be back. My fingers are really dirty. I've got to clean it off. Be right back. So, here we are back, and I'm going to add my vegetable stock, my vegetable broth, right where this garlic is sizzling with the butter and the olive oil. I'm going to add about a cup, and then I'm going to bring it to a boil. And once I do that, then I add my secret ingredient, and then we cover and let our collards cook. I cook them a little longer, as I said, than my mustard and turnip, because I don't want the mustard and turnip will cook quicker. So let's get this. I'm gonna let that come to a boil, and then I'm gonna add some of this. I'll just show you. Be right back. Alrighty, now my vegetable stock and that smushed garlic and butter and olive oil is all boiling. So this is when I add the secret ingredient. Show you the box. I don't have my box because I use it so fast. But it's the Italian salad dressing. You can use zesty or regular. I use this one. This includes garlic. It has a celery. It has onion. It has mustard. It has parsley. All these different flavors. And without buying a whole bottle of something that I may not use again, you know. So I just mix it up, and if you look in, I don't know if you can see all the different spices, and it's got red pepper flakes and all that good stuff. Take a look at it. And I'm going to sprinkle this into my mixture, less than half a package, and just let it go till everybody is melded together, and that garlic is just very rich. I do not use, if you use this separate, I use garlic powder and onion powder. I don't use garlic salt or onion salt. If you have it and that's what you have, then you can use it, certainly. But I like to control the amount of salt in my food and in my family's food. So I'm boiling. This is, it smells so good. So I'm going to put some of my peppers and onions back in. And all those flavors are melding together for a moment. And then I'm going to prepare to put in my collards. Again, if you were to cook this with smoked meat, you would get either the fully cooked smoked meat and bring it to till it was hot. And then, you know, break it up and put it in with your greens. If it's already cooked meat, you might want to wait until your collards are about done, because otherwise you don't want to lose that flavor. I've used ham hocks, I've used smoked ribs, I've used Polish sausages, wonderful. You can use the smoked sausage. You can also use, some people use salt pork. There's just a number of things, or bacon. I don't use anything, you can get smoked turkey. That works as well. But we started eating meatless, and sometimes I've rarely gone back to the meat, because my family just fell in love with the meatless, and they of course love the meat. All of us love that ham hock. Okay, so now I'm going to begin adding my greens. And I would like to use this, but you know, I got to do me. So I've cut up, as you can see, my collards. I've cut them up just so that they cook kind of evenly, and I just put it right in the pan. And then I reduce the temperature, because they're going to take the time that they're going to take, and you can't rush perfection. It looks like a lot of greens. Those of us who know greens, we know that they cook down. So not to worry. I'm going to have room for my other greens. And I'm going to put a top on this. And I'm also going to stir so that everybody gets part of what's down there. I should have stirred some instead of talking, huh? So, and then I take a little bit more of our secret ingredient. And by the way, it does have salt in it as well. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay. So I'm going to let that settle, and I'll be back when it's a little softer, and then we can add our other greens. I hope you enjoy it. And I had the recipe for cornbread, which should be in my feed, so you can also make cornbread with it. We'll be back. Well, here are our greens, and they have cooked down quite a bit. These are the collards. I'm going to give them a couple more minutes. And I just want to tell you, sometimes the greens can taste bitter. And what I do is I take maybe a half a teaspoon of sugar, and I cook it towards more closer to the end and stir it in there. It doesn't make the greens sweet, but it can cut down on that bitterness. And especially because we're not adding meat to ours, so we don't have that extra smoked flavor that may mask sometimes that bitterness. But certainly I add a little bit of butter, and I really like the flavor of the butter because it doesn't taste buttery. You know, it doesn't taste like buttery greens. Okay, so these have cooked down, and you know, the pot was full, and now it looks like we hardly have any greens here. Now I'm going to add my mustard and turnips. I've already washed them and cut them up kind of the same size. Some of them are a little long because of the brokenness in them. So I'm going to put those in. And I want to make sure all of it's going to cook down. I want to make sure it has that flavor from the bottom. And if I run out of liquid, I do add a little bit more. But you'll find that the greens will be cooking down just like the collards did. And the flavor it'll have all the flavors merged together. This is one of my I think this is my easiest recipe now. I want to say again, I roast my peppers and my garlic. You do not have to do that. You can actually use them, just cook them. Some people don't like onion, certainly. you don't have to add onion. I found with this recipe with greens that if you're not going to add meat, that there, even if I add meat, it is all these flavors are layered into the greens, so it's not going to taste like a whole festive. It's just going to taste like some amazing greens. So I'm going to cook these down, and then once these come tender, I'll be back with you, and I'm going to top them with the pepper and onion that we have here and stir that in for a few minutes, and we're done. Well, there we go. The greens are ready. The meatless greens are ready. And I'm going to just put a little here on the plate so you can see them. The mustard and turnips, they're all very tender. And I put the peppers in, the roasted peppers and onions. So here are the greens. Oh, it smells so good. And I use vegetable stock. I don't think that you're gonna miss anything to do with the meat. Delicious. Try it. Together we can do this. The flavor is so rich. I think you're gonna like it. You may go meatless and you may add meat, but these are so good. You have a good one. Talk soon.